That was a hit.
And it was on the TV all the time. So it's funny, my father says, well, you never had any hit records. I said, hey, I had a hit commercial. They showed it for like a year, various edits of it. So, I mean, you know.
Well, speaking of working your way up, Robert, you've been in about 1 million movies up until this Freddy Krueger stuff started, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can constantly see you in the crowd.
I'm bouncing off Sputnik right now. Yeah, I get haunted, you know, from... Now, you know, cable is amazing. You know, it gives you this whole, like, resurrection of your career. Some of it you're really glad about. I did a movie for Bob Rafelson when he was the talk of the town, called Stay Hungry, and it was right after 5 Easy Pieces and King of Marvin Gardens, and I was proud to be in it, and I beat out Gary Busey and Sylvester Stallone for the role, and had to go through all that process, and gave a big break to Sally Field, got her Norma Ray, and she's like 6 Oscars later, she's happy and fat, and Jeff Bridges, who I like a lot, was wonderful in this movie, and Byron Berline, who was fiddling for the Stones back then, did our music, and a big guy named Arnold Schwarzenegger was discovered for that movie. But that movie was out for about 11 seconds after all of that hype and all of that energy and lots and lots and lots of months in Birmingham, Alabama. But then it came back on cable. So that kind of kicked up my career again in the late 70s. We're in the late 80s now. But yeah, so I've paid my dues and had the hills and valleys of the Hollywood guy, so to speak.
But you grew up in L.A., so did you just naturally gravitate towards the acting thing, or was there? What'd you do first?
Dad, I was supposed to, go to Stanford and be a lawyer, and I just knew I couldn't retain all that crap. So, I forget when it was. I think I was about 13 or 14. I got into a children's theater for the girls. Purely for the girls. I went with a friend of my
That
parents.
had nothing to do with your getting in a band, did it?
No.
Well, all integrity in the musicianship and craft. But no, and I was, I can remember being down in the girls' bathroom, and I had real long hair for this part, which also, helped me out with the rock crowd too. And the girls were teaching me how to blow smoke rings, and they were like in various stages of undress. They were like the harem girls from Aladdin His Wonderful Lamp, and I was Aladdin, and they were putting curls in my hair for the part, and I was learning how to blow smoke rings, and I went, yeah, what a racket this is. Actors are sissies,
this sounds
sure.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and I sort of got
downhill after
the turning
that.
point. Yeah,
I mean, how much better can you get than that?
No more smoke rings and no more perms with the girls in brassieres. Yeah.
Well, what was the first movie you appeared in?
A thing called Buster and Billy. We were talking about Hoyt Axton earlier, and Hoyt did a real pretty country score for it. Real sweet theme song with Jan Michael Vincent and Pamela Sue Martin and a bunch of people. Dan Petrie, who's a busy director now. I got kind of spoiled because my first 3 jobs in a row were starring roles in feature films, all on location for A directors. I worked with people like Henry Fonda and Susan Sarandon, and as I said, Jeff and Sally and Arnold and people like that. And then reality kind of hit. None of those movies were a hit. And they took a year to come out. So I was, Mr. Unemployment, regular. I used to stand behind Joe Besser.
Maybe that's where we saw
That's where we knew each other. Remember Joe Besser from the old Abbott and Costello show?
Yeah.
The mean little kid. He's also a stooge.
Yeah,
I think he just passed away. Yeah. But so those were my early dues. And then after that, I became reasonably traditional, Hollywood actor.
How many years ago did the first Nightmare on Elm Street start?
That was 85, I think, 84, 85, yeah. So it's been the last couple of years. I do it every summer. We do a nightmare movie, sort of like, going to Camp Hell. All right, campers! We're all psyched up to get one of those things done. It's unpleasant for me because I got to wear all that stuff, and it's summer and it's hot,
Well, I would see you around shows and stuff. I'd see you at music shows, just hanging out like I was around L.A. Now, you've come to the Club Lingerie?
Yeah.
I've been running shows down there. Yeah. This is kind of a tough question I asked on an earlier one, which was, can you think of the best show you ever saw? I mean, there's so many things that could qualify for such a thing. But.
Well, off the top of my head, mentioning the Club Lingerie, do you remember what the Blasters had gone out? Well, you might have been with them at the time. They had gone out on some tour, and they'd come back like later one night early in the morning, and they did a show. Part of them did a show behind Big Joe Turner as the Lee Allen Orchestra. Do you remember that? It was March of a year, 83, 84, I can't remember, and that was at the Club Lingerie, and that's always been coincidentally enough, one of the main Master Blaster shows I've ever seen in my life, when they apparently did a brief rehearsal in the afternoon and looked at each other and said, well, we all know the material. We've listened to it for 20 years. Joe's sung it for 40 or whatever. It's in the key of C, you know, first one, the end's the winner. And that was just some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen in L.A. or anywhere, really. That particular show.
That was quite a show.
Yeah.
Nobody recorded it. I remember I wanted to have a tape of it afterwards.
Well, the photographs that a lot of the journalists took of the stage and back behind, I'm in almost every one because I'm like front row center doing the sort of 1948 version of a headbang. And I mean, it was just an astounding thing. And whenever anybody talks about it, I say, do you have any photographs of it? I'm right behind the monitor because, you know, Joe in those days sat because he wasn't 100%. And I'm in a lot of those photographs of that show. And it always reminds me whenever I see him how tremendous it was and how tremendous he was.
Robert, you got any favorites that come to mind?
Well, the best show I ever saw wasn't in L.A. It was in Detroit at a place called the Checkmate Lounge, I think. I did a lot of theater in Detroit for years. And it was John Lee Hooker, and I'm trying to think who, there was a guest on it. Oh, it was Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, and John Lee Hooker's son on organ. And food and liquor and just everything you could ask for. And it was like, I was very young. It was a real eye-opener for me. Big Mama Thornton at the old Ash Grove when I was very, very young. And she started her set, and this has been used a lot of times, but I was sitting out there, and the curtain opened, and all you heard was a foot, and she inhaled on her cigarette, and her face was sort of like dashboard lit from beneath with the ember from the cigarette, which we've seen in a million movies now, but this was like 64, 65, and she was kind of lit by her cigarette, and she started to sing a cappella. You know, and I was pretty impressed, needless to say. And then Pylon up here at Cafe de Grande, funny little Georgia group that used to play with the B-52s from that Athens, Georgia group. And they had this sort of mad, psycho prom queen, lead singer girl, and it was, I'd never seen anything quite like it at that time.
Pylon.
And yeah, and oh, well, God, I'm trying to think of the group. What's that group?
Was Not Was?
Yeah, was playing that night, and I should have seen them, and there was no one there, but these guys still gave 100%, and it was sort of like, it was me and Ken Tucker and nobody else in the audience, and we couldn't believe they were, you know, really giving their, as an actor, you like to see that. I mean, I empathize a lot with musicians, like an actor, even if I'm not crazy about the group or the sound, I like, you know, I empathize so much. I don't want anybody to talk or be rude. And if they're really in that group, I've never seen a group give so much for so few. Whether there's one person out there or 100, you know, all that actor talk. And it was a pretty amazing set. Yeah.
Well, speaking of pretty amazing sets,
Yeah.
you know those guys that were here before?
The Sores.
I
They
think
kept me sane in my makeup trailer.
The Saddle Sores. I think they're warming up again. Let's hear. Well, I told you they wrote a song about Freddy Krueger. Well, this is it. you go. Saddle Sores from L.A.
It's a hit. It's a dance craze.
We only got 2.5 minutes left. You guys want to play some poker?
No, I don't know about that.
Well, let's play for your album collection.
Just an album cover.
Use my deck, Art.
What was I going to ask? So listen, when you've been hanging around all these clubs in the LA circuit, were you there you were there in the '60s also, right? I mean, somewhat as a child.
Yeah, I was. The Cheetah, I think, was where Doors down there a bit. Yeah.
And this place we talked about on Sunset, this Beetolitos, you say you saw the leaves.
Well, Beetolitos was that was actually the Sea Witch, where Sky Saxon and the Seeds and the Leaves and those guys played. Beetolitos was that group Love. They used that was that song that was in What's New Pussycat.
Right, yeah.
Little black book, doo 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 doo.
Right.
Yeah, they were the house band there.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
And then the other guy, the guy came over from England, that had that Arthur Fire.
Oh,
Arthur Brown, the Crazy World of Arthur
He
Brown.
he was there for a long time.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was like a house band there too. It was.
Arthur Brown was once at a gig of ours in Austin, Texas, where he lives, and he's got a company that paints houses with
Right.
Jimmy Carl Black of the Mothers of Invention. So you can imagine they paint houses. Two of those bands, the guy's name is Brown, the guy's name is Black, and they didn't even have a clever name for the company. It was like, Austin House Painters or something. And I said, I can't believe it. I mean, come on, think of the possibilities.
Well, okay, so Sid, it's been a groove seeing you again.
It's good to see you, Art.
This new band doesn't have a name yet?
Oh, well, I think it might seriously be Land of Hope and Crosby. We're going to have a...
Get outta here.
I'm serious. If we have an Englishman in the band, we're based in California, I think it's a great choice. And even you smiled or giggled, and I think it's a good idea.
Well, I think it's a good idea, too. Robert Englund, thanks very much for
Thank
coming
you,
by.
Art.
It's been a pleasure having you here. And we take this to the next step when it's beamed nation all across the world on the satellite. We'll have you back on again.
I look forward to it.
So thanks for coming by. Thank you for coming by. And time for the theme song by Chucky Weiss. Have you ever seen Chucky Weiss?
Yeah, Chucky.
She loves to watch. She loves to watch. She loves to watch